So there are a few quick safety announcements. Please use caution as you move around the vessel. It will be a little rough on the way out here and especially rough underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. Parents, keep an eye on your children at all times. No running, jumping, or standing on the bed just for your safety and those around you. Don't forget, folks, we do have a full-service snack bar on the main deck. Thank you. Enjoy the ride.
We are now leaving Fisherman's Wharf behind. Right now, we're passing a number of interesting sights. Look on the left or port side of the ship towards the city. Do you see a large gray battleship? That is a restored Liberty ship, the SS Jeremiah O'Brien. Next to it, tied to the pier, is a diesel submarine, the USS Pampanito. Both vessels were active in World War II. Now look out the right side of the boat, also called starboard, toward the bay. Look for a lone island. Not much more than a rock with a few buildings perched on top. That rock is the Rock, the island of Alcatraz. We will get closer later on in our tour. Now look out the front of the bow of the boat. If it's not too foggy, the bright red bridge you see is the famous Golden Gate Bridge.
I'm good, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, right here's fine.
Look left, to the port side of the ship, toward the shore. Find the three tall masts of the old sailing ship Valclusa. The Valclusa is a steel-hulled, square-rigged cargo ship that first sailed from Wales in 1887. She carried a crew of 26 men, a load of coal and other goods bound for San Francisco. Since then, her journey has taken her as far as Australia, Cape Horn, and Europe many times over. Today, it is designated as a National Historic Monument. To the left of the Valclusa is a big white ferryman, the black smokestack. That's the Eureka, a paddle-wheel steam ferry boat that dates back to the 1890s. Before the Great Bay Bridges were built, the Eureka transported train cars, Model T Fords, commuting passengers, and even cattle into the city. Both ships are part of the San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park, also known as Hines Street Pier. Hines Street Pier is located at the end of the Hines Street Campground Road. You can visit the park year-round. From here, you can also see the large sign of the Ghirardelli Chocolate Factory. It's atop the red brick of the building rising above the ships to the left. San Francisco is famous for great food, and the Ghirardelli chocolate is part of that legend. Now look farther along the shoreline. You'll see large buildings with red doors. Those are the piers of Fort Mason, one of several military locations we'll see around the bay today. John Martini is a San Francisco historian.
For most of its history, Fort Mason was called a port of embarkation. It's where supplies and men were loaded aboard ships and then sailed out. And during World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, men sailed out of here for war in the Pacific. And then many of them, but not all, came back again to the big warehouses that were built.
Today, those piers and warehouses are a hive of activity for some of San Francisco's environmental organizations, theatrical troops, and small art galleries. depths of the Caribbean. Let your eyes sweep across the bay. We are traveling back over 150 years ago, when San Francisco was a sleepy town. A beautiful bay, in the middle of nowhere. That was 1847. But in 1848...
Gold. Gold. Gold on the American River.
San Francisco's days as a quiet town was gone forever. At first, the town almost disappeared. Everybody in San Francisco grabbed a pick and shovel and headed for the hills. The editor of a local newspaper wrote in an editorial,
The stores are closed and places of business vacated, as if a curse had arrested our onward course of enterprise. Everything is dull, monotonous, dead.
that editor then locked his doors and headed for the gold fields himself. But the town didn't stay deserted for long. Young people from all over the world came here to San Francisco. In just 2 years, the population skyrocketed from 500 to 25,000. Look back at the city. Life in San Francisco was truly wild and woolly. At the heart of the madness was a stretch of waterfront called the Barbary Coast. These few blocks were long on action and short on law and order. In memoirs written years later, some people recalled it as a slice of heaven, while others remembered it as a corner of hell.
I have seen pure liquors, better cigars, better tobacco, truer guns and pistols, larger dirks and Bowie knives, and prettier courtesans here in San Francisco than in any place I have ever visited.
The village of every nationality held high carnival there. It was a grand theater of crime, licentiousness, debauchery, insanity, misery, poverty, wealth.
Building a concrete pier in water more than 100 feet deep. Enormous temporary walls were built, enclosing an area in the bay the size of a football field. Water was pumped out, then the concrete was poured. Next came the two towers. When they were completed, thousands of steel strands were bundled together to form the enormous main cable that connected. Finally, the road itself was built, starting at both ends and working toward the middle to keep the bridge in balance. It's easy to describe. It was far from easy to accomplish. Imagine working there, day after day, in the cold, in the fog, in the rain. On major construction projects in those days, experience had shown that one workman usually died for every $1 million spent. The budget for the bridge was $35 million, but Joseph Strauss was determined that 35 lives would not be lost on his bridge. A safety net was fabricated and suspended below the workmen, and although 11 men did die during construction, 19 men fell into the safety net and were saved. Those 19 lucky men formed a very special club. It's called the Halfway to Hell Club. Of the 11 men who lost their lives during construction, 10 of them died in one accident when a 10-ton scaffold fell and tore through the net. The Golden Gate Bridge was completed in less than 5 years,
Golden Gate Bridge right here.
1937. Joseph Strauss let the world know exactly how he
San
felt.
Francisco, Nevada.
The Golden Gate Bridge. The bridge which could not and should not be built, which the War Department would not permit, which the rocky foundation of the pier base would not support, which would have no traffic to justify it, which would ruin the beauty of the Golden Gate, stands before you in all its majestic splendor, in complete refutation of every attack made upon it.
Look up at the Twin Towers. They rise nearly 750 feet above the water. Let your eyes follow the bridge from shore to shore. The roadway extends for 1.25 miles without touching down on solid ground. Look at the two main cables. There's enough wire there to wrap around the planet 3 times. Each strand indicating a secured steel reinforcement in a 50,000-ton foundation buried deep gave one very smart inmate an idea. Slowly and patiently, he began to collect bits and pieces of uniforms as they made their way through the laundry. And when I say patient, I mean it. It took him 10 years to do it, but he finally collected a complete Army uniform, dog tags and all. Armed with nothing more than a Texaco map and a few dollars in change, he calmly strolled down to the dock and walked onto the boat with the rest of the soldiers. He made it as far as Angel Island. Alcatraz guards were there to meet him with a pair of handcuffs, and he quietly rowed the boat back to the rock. One guard captain said he kind of felt sorry for the guy. He should have won an award for his efforts. Today, names like Al Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, and Robert Stroud the Birdman are world famous. But other Alcatraz inmates were equally evil, though their names might be forgotten. Like Billy Cook. He murdered 12 people in cold blood.
Oh, Billy Cook. I never liked him. He spit in my face once.
George DiVincenzi.
He killed a mother and a father and 3 children and threw them down a well. He was given 300 years from Alcatraz. And talk about a psychopath, he was one. Because he killed a California Highway Patrol officer, they gave him the death penalty, and he was executed at San Quentin. So I took a busman's holiday and went over there and watched him get executed. He was an animal as far as I'm concerned.
Just think about your first day on the job, or maybe your first day at a new school. I'll bet it was nothing like George DiVincenzi's first day on Alcatraz.
I reported 9 o'clock Monday morning, and I was told to go to the barbershop. I was the barbershop officer. This one inmate, the barber, proceeded to give his first customer a haircut. And as he was giving them a haircut, they were conversing in low tones very intimately. I could not quite figure what was going on. And as the haircut proceeded, the conversation got more intense. Next thing you know, the customer who was getting the haircut got up out of the chair, and the barber lunged at him with these big barber shears about 10 inches long. He got him in the neck, in the heart, in the throat. Down he went, blood flying all over the place. And me, like a damn fool, blowing the whistle, I jumped in trying to separate him. When 3 of us spun around, knocked the barber chair over, knocked another cabinet over, and he kept hitting with these scissors. Of course, he was dead within less than a minute. Needless to say, that was the end of the shears in the barbershop. They went to electric clippers after that. That was my introduction to Alcatraz, my first day.
It was said that the cold waters and deadly currents of the bay made Alcatraz virtually escape-proof. International attention when a section of the roadway collapsed during the 1989 earthquake. That section was part of the older cantilever bridge that connects to Oakland on the other side of Yerba Buena Island. It is here you can see the new bridge design. This eastern portion of the bridge is the largest self-anchored suspension bridge in the world. The central tower rises 525 feet into the air and is designed to withstand a magnitude 8.5 earthquake. The new eastern span of the Bay Bridge cost more than $6 billion to construct, but is part of a vital link between Oakland and San Francisco that carries more than 300,000 automobiles per day. Now look at the low, flat island connected to Yerba Buena Island at the middle of the bridge. That's Treasure Island. It's an artificial island that was built as a site for the 1939 Golden Gate International Exposition World's Fair. Back in 1850, long before the Bay Bridge was built, it was said that there were so many ships anchored in the bay that you could walk from San Francisco to the East Bay without getting your feet wet. Many of those ships were abandoned, eventually being burned, sunk, filled over, and used as landfill in downtown San Francisco. Now, look toward the downtown area, marked by the tall Transamerica Pyramid building. It's the pointy one in the cluster of tall buildings.
Even today, when they're doing construction in downtown San Francisco, you'll run into portions of these gold rush ships. One was discovered right next to the Transamerica Pyramid a few years back. And out of its hold came cases of champagne,